Earlier in 2024, I was actively growing my plant collection, trying new genuses, just to fall in love with new plants and just to learn and discover different plants. This video that I filmed in March of 2024 is actually probably one of my biggest haul videos that I've posted so far on my channel. So I'm actually excited to bring out all of these plants and show you where they started versus where they are now, if they're still here with me, because some did not make it. Share just briefly, because there are so many of them, a few tips that I learned along the way. If you like videos like this, you may want to stick around my channel. And without further ado, let's get started. It's funny because the first plant that I'm going to share is, I learned a lot. Let's put it that way. I learned a lot about that plant and about how I feel about these types of plant. Let's take a look at the first one and see what it looked like when it entered my collection. But this is a Philodendron Pink Princess Marble. It is a pink princess, but this is a marble version. So basically the variegation on this plant looks just a little bit different than your typical pink princess. I really love how the variegation looks in pictures that I've seen online on Instagram. I'll also post pictures of what my Philodendron Pink Princess Marble. This is what it looks like now. Not that very different for 9 months. You would expect a whole lot more. Would you? For this type of plant, would you really expect more? These plants, the Philodendron Pink Princess, White Princess, not so much the White Wizard, they're not difficult. They're good growers. They just have a hard time unfurling. So I lose a lot of leaves. So it'll do great, push out a new leaf, but then the leaf will get lost in the process. It will just get stuck and then twist and twist until it snaps on itself. And it's a bit frustrating to be so patient and wait so long for it to sort of be so underwhelming. It will unfurl and you're like, oh, what a bummer, what a disappointment. And if we even have to talk about the variegation is so underwhelming on the majority of these plants that you'll see. Don't get me wrong, there are people who have beautifully variegated versions of these plants with bright pink, etc., like I show in that video. But I find these are more of the exceptions rather than the rule. I find most of the white princesses and pink princess marbles, their variegation to be underwhelming, and it doesn't perform quite like how you'd imagine. You may wonder, well, what's the deal with the setup? I really desperately needed a self-watering pot for a plant, and this was in one, and so I just took it quickly out of the pot, put it in here. It's in my tub, and then used that pot. It's just sitting in this for like a month now. And yes, I do water it. It's in my tub, so I just sort of splash water on it about once a week, and it just keeps going. It just keeps going. So this is a Philodendron Lemon Lime, and I've always sort of wanted one of these in my collection. I already have a neon pothos, and the color on them are very, very similar. But for some reason, I just felt like I wanted to have this. I just like the heart-shaped leaves, which is a bit different than the pothos. I got it for $12, so it's not that expensive, and they're pretty fast growers. And that is my Philodendron Lemon Lime. I don't have it to show with me here right now because it's sitting in my window. No, the plant's just fine. Yes, it's sitting in my north-facing window. It's in a macrame hanger. I want to say it is one of the top plants in my collection. I'm trying to figure out whether it's in my top 5 or top 10, but it's probably in my top 10. I love this plant so much. The bright coloring of the leaf, just that type of yellow, it's just so beautiful. And even if it's in a north-facing window, it's growing so beautifully. It's growing so well. It's behaving so well. It's really high up in the window, so many times I forget to water it, or I'm walking by like, I need to water you, I need to water you, and the reservoir will get completely dry and be completely dry, like empty, bone dry for like, I don't know, close to a week. Like, not the best practices here. It's like, okay, whenever you get to me, it's fine. It's like that perfect guest, you know, when you have house guests and they come and they visit and they're like so chill and easygoing, and they're just like, oh, forget I'm even here. Like, it's okay, I'll just help myself. That's this plant. Amazing. I love it. I just love it so much. I actually want more of these plants around my home, but I'm resisting the urge to create duplicates. My goal is to sort of cut it back just a little bit and stick them back into the pot just to get more of a fuller pot. No complaints about this plant. 10 out of 10. Love this plant. 2 thumbs up. This is a Hoya Crimson Queen, and this plant originally was growing in soil. I will show you, because I got these maybe at least 3 weeks ago, I'll show you what it looked like when I originally got it. And it was originally growing in soil, and I decided to put this plant in pond. That is my Hoya Carnosa Crimson Queen. And I tried a few things with this plant, took it out of, like I mentioned in the video, I took it out of soil, I put it in pond because I was just trying out pond. And I think finally we have a winner. We have a setup. This plant is now thriving. Let me show you. I know. It's like, I don't know. I said I know, but I don't know. I just know that I'm really excited. This plant, she is beautiful. She is beautiful. I absolutely, I love this plant. It was touch and go there for a second, but I think we have finally, found each other. We are seeing eye to eye. A common Hoya and one that I love. Wish that I got it a little bit sooner, but I mean, I did get it early on in my Hoya collecting journey. So I guess I got it as early as I could get it. We struggled in the beginning, but I honestly think it may have had flat mites as well. Because even when it started growing, it would start dropping a lot of the new leaves. So I think maybe when I first got it, it had a little something. There was something on it that wasn't visible to the naked eye. Since then, I have put it in Molly's aeroid mix and I started treating it. Since then, it has been doing very well. It lives in my south facing window. It's just happy. It's doing so much better. I'm starting to get some more new vines from this plant and some more variegation from it. And I have this gorgeous, gorgeous, gorgeous all white leaf here. My only gripe that I have, and that's even a strong word to use, the only thing is that I wish that I had gotten a more variegated specimen. So I wish that the one that I had more white in it. But overall, apart from that, I'm very happy with this plant. I don't think it's the plant's fault. It's just the one that I picked. It doesn't mean that the plant is difficult or anything. It's just the one that I got didn't have a lot of variegation. And honestly, when I got this plant originally, there weren't a lot of Crimson Queens. Basically just got what I could get. But since then, since I got this plant, there has been so many more Crimson Queens flooding the market, at least where I live, and they've had some beautiful variegation. You could even get it at Home Depot. I have it in a self-watering pot, again in Molly's aeroid mix, and it loves to push its roots in the reservoir, but it doesn't overreact when the roots hit the reservoir. Some plants do that. Now we are on the up and up. I recommend it, especially if you could get a very variegated version. This is a Hoya AH074, and I got this one just from Facebook Marketplace off a local seller for a pretty good price. And this one I really love. Not even the silver, but just the variegation on this plant is very, very beautiful. I really appreciate it. This leaf is almost completely variegated with very little green in it, and it's not silver, it's a mint. It's sort of like a mint, a very pale green color. This is the Hoya AH074, and honestly, for a long time, I thought this plant wasn't doing anything. I thought it wasn't growing. But now that I've watched the video of what I started with, I am shocked. I'm shocked at how far it has gotten. But anyways, that's this plant, the Hoya AH074. I got it originally because of the beautiful silver-like look to the leaves. This plant, it reverts very easily. The variegation is not stable. Sometimes you'll get sort of very splashy variegated leaves. So for example, the most of the leaf is let me show you. Let me just show you what I mean. There you go. So here we have a very underwhelming leaf. I mean, it's beautiful. I love how big it is actually, but it's more green than minty. But then look at the leaf before, you have a little bit more, you have more mintiness than the green. The green is almost like a splashing rather than being predominant. So I've seen many people talk about how this plant completely reverts on them, and I can see it because I have had some leaves that just revert, growing in this direction. So as you can tell, you can probably see how it's reverting more and more and more as we go. I guess I could call it a fast grower. I guess so. It just needs very high amounts of light to give you that beautiful variegation and to grow well. This is a Hoya Michele, or some people call it a Hoya Michele. So I got this, it was one long cutting from Jenna's Plants. I love the big wide leaf, and I really love the splashing that's on this plant. And so far I've put it into water to propagate, and we have some roots growing. It seems to be happy. All of my cuttings, I keep them in a prop box and right next to a south facing window so they can get all of that good yummy light. Is the Hoya Michele. I believe it's Michele. Yes, the Hoya Michele. And you would have seen this plant on my hard Hoya video. I told you what you need to know. It's funny, I got these two plants at the exact same time. I got the AH074 and this. And if anything, this had more leaves than the AH074. And look at where we are with this one. In the time that I've had it, I think I've only gained these two leaves here. So 1 and 2. And I'm not gonna lie, one of them is extremely splashy and very good looking. The other one, not so much, but one of them is so splashy, I honestly cannot complain. So it's, you know, not the fastest growing Hoya. I love it for its beautiful splashiness and its very big paddle-like leaves. I love that about it. But it's it's not very easy. It doesn't lose leaves easily because, hey, if it did, this would look so much different. It wouldn't even be here with us right now. I wondered if I had flat mites on this plant. I looked with a microscope. I did not see anything. Could be it has, but I didn't see anything. But I sprayed this with the same treatment that I spray with all my other plants that, you know, show signs of maybe it had flat mites or something that's inhibiting the growth. And these have recovered and started growing beautifully, like the Hoya Crimson Queen that I just showed you. But this one is still, you know, it's still here underperforming. So I think it's just the plant. I think that's just what it's like. But anyways, I think it's beautiful, and I think it's an amazing plant in terms of the way the foliage looks. I do think, you know, it's, you know, she's a little bit of a diva and just doesn't want to grow. I don't have very high expectations. I'm just glad to have it, and I think it's cute. Wibergiae China. So this doesn't look like the most splashy Wibergiae, but the seller was selling it. It was going for a pretty good price. It wasn't too expensive. It actually wasn't expensive at all. It was a great price. Yes, it's my Hoya Wibergiae China. And as you can see, that plant itself was a very underwhelming plant in terms of variegation and splashiness. This is what it looks like now. It was sold to me as a Hoya Wibergiae China. When I bought it, I did not know a whole lot about Hoya. Like I said, I just had started collecting Hoya like the month before that. And so in my mind, I was like, oh, it's not very splashy, but you know what? I could just give it lots of light and sort of trigger that splashiness again. And it was inexpensive. It was just, basically she was just giving it away. And I can tell why, because it doesn't have any splashiness. It's barely even freckles. It's just basically a Hoya Carnosa at this point. So I was very disappointed by it. For some reason, it took me a while to figure out this plant. It could have been, again, flat mites, or it had something that I couldn't see. But when I sprayed it down and I just put it in, is this Molly's? No, I think this is my DIY aeroid mix. And I just put it in this cup, fill in the water every now and then, and it started pushing out some new growth. And I've actually gifted some cuttings to a friend. So honestly, if I didn't do that, it would have been a lot bigger than what it is right now. I really wanted to get a real Hoya Carnosa Wibergiae China with some good splashing on it. So I know this is not part of that haul, but I want to show you a better version. I got this from Genus Plants. And as you can see, it's like night and day when it comes to the splashing, the way the leaves look. It's a pretty little thing. Look at those. Oh man, it's gorgeous. I think when I got it, it had 2 leaves. Did it only have 2 leaves? That's why I love doing these types of videos, because now I can't even remember what it looked like when I first got it. I just know that it was small and it didn't have a lot of leaves on it, but I remember being in love with the splashing and just how beautifully the plant looked. I think it may just be getting a little too much light, because if you notice, the leaf sizes are starting to get smaller and smaller. Beautiful, don't get me wrong, lots of splashiness. But as you can see, the new leaves are getting smaller and smaller. I mean, this can still sort of fill out and get a lot bigger. It's such a good specimen when it comes to splashing that I think that I will be okay if I just, when you're spending your money, spend wisely. I got this for free. This was given to me as a Hoya Mathilde. Okay, so also in that video, I have a teeny tiny Mathilde splash. It looks almost exactly the same. I'll just insert a picture. I think it grew 1 leaf, and that's pretty much it. It's so tiny, it reminds me of a serpens, but then I think I've seen some serpens in person. So it's not a serpens, but yeah, it just looks pretty much the same. I do have Mathilde splash that I already had when I got this, because she gifted it to me, but I already had this, and I'm so glad I already had this one, because this one's a looker. It's really good looking, but I had this before already, and you've seen this in a recent video. Wibergiae. I will call it a Wibergiae. So I've got this one, and when I first got this Hoya Wibergiae, it had this growth point was not here. That was not there. And it's funny because the seller was like, hey, do you want this? I thought, sure, I'll take it. I mean, I wouldn't say no to anything. And I Googled up what a Wibergiae could look like. And it gets these, I believe that's when it's sun stressed. It has, is it purple? This very purplish, pinkish color. And I thought it was very pretty. So I thought, yeah, why not? I'll get it. This one is another one that didn't do a whole lot. It started doing something and pushing out a bunch of leaves, and then it stopped. So I wasn't sure, again, if it had pests, what the issue was. I know the perlite is not very good looking in here. Again, all of that's from the same seller. So it could be the health of the plants themselves. They could, I'm not sure. It's still hanging in there. That's what I will give to this plant. It hangs in there. It has lost so many teeny tiny leaves along the way as it tried its best to push out new growth. But yeah, that's pretty much it. It's working on something here. It's trying. I try to spray it with pest spray as often as possible. It could just be either that's just how Wibergiaes are, or it could just be this plant in itself is just not a very healthy specimen to begin with. But I'm going to keep fighting with it. I'm going to keep working at it. Hopefully in 6 more months, we'll have a better looking plant. I'm not going to give up on it. I'm going to hang in there with it. And this is a Syngonium Albo. This is a plant that I have wanted for quite some time, but I never seem to find it in my local plant stores. I was a little disappointed that there was not a lot of variegation on the leaves, but I thought, hey, it's a Syngonium Albo, it's $20, and this lower leaf here had quite a bit of variegation. It surprised me. My Syngonium Albo. Wow, it's just so crazy to see these plants a few months ago. No, I don't have it here because it is in my bathroom. It's in a south-facing window, sort of vining along like a ladder that I'm hanging in there. It's doing very well. It's a beautiful plant. If you're thinking about getting this plant, I would recommend it. It's very, very nice. Quite fast grower, very thirsty, all the good things to say about this plant. Still in love with it. It's growing in pond and in a self-watering pot. But something I've learned about Syngonium, you could just put it in water. A lot of my Syngonium grow in water and it would be just fine. But I just keep it in the pond just because I wanted to hold down the plant a little bit more securely. And yeah, but that's it. Like what you see. If you do, let me know by hitting the thumbs up button down below and consider subscribing. It's absolutely free and it'll help you to find my future videos very easily. This is a Hoya Latifolia. So I got this online. This growth point did not exist when I got it last week. And wow, it's already pushed this out. Can you believe this plant was an impulse buy? When I saw it from that grower, I just thought, you know what, this looks nice. Let me get it. And this is now one of my favorite Hoya in my collection. You know this plant. I've showed this to you before. I've showed it to you maybe like 2 weeks ago. You've seen it on my channel. I absolutely love this plant. It's the Hoya Latifolia Sarawak. I've said so much. I mean, what else is there to say? I just love how big the leaves get on this plant. And it's definitely not one of these plants that's like one leaf at a time. It's not like that. It will push out multiple leaves at the same time. But the leaves do take a long time to harden off. And so this leaf, nope, not this one. Is this one? No, this one has been growing for a while. I don't even think it's finished growing. That's why it's still so soft. I think it's still working on this. And another one down here, I think this leaf is still growing because it's still so soft. Even this one that's pretty big, I don't think it's fully finished hardening off yet because the smaller leaves that are hardened off, they're a little bit firmer. They're definitely a lot firmer. It speaks for itself. It is like a statement plant. And if you look here closely, you'll see it's pushing out some new growth. The new growth tends to do that, look like they're gonna sun stress, and they will look that dark burgundy color for a long while, but then as they harden off, they will just, get back into the regular leaf color. And it didn't take a long time to size up. So some plants, some Hoya especially, well, is it some Hoya? Well, some plants, you'll have them for a while, you'll have those juvenile leaves and they'll take a long time to size up. Look at how quickly in just a few months, and it's still so small, look at how fast it sized up. So 3 more plants left. The next one that I'll talk about is a Hoya Crassipetiolata Splash. One is the Hoya Crassipetiolata Splash. You would have seen this plant recently because I repotted it recently. And I love this plant. As you can see, it's a great grower. It's quite satisfying. It's one of my favorite Hoya in my collection because it is so easy but very rewarding because it gives you these beautiful splashy leaves and it likes to vine, push out new growth from random places. So you're always surprised with new vines sort of growing all over the plant. It is beautiful. I love it. I do think this plant is extremely thirsty. I repotted it, like I said, I repotted it recently because I just couldn't stay on top of the watering. I couldn't keep up with it. And so I put it in a self-watering pot and put it in my DIY, sort of like a soilless mix. And it's been doing well so far. I don't think I've suffered much. Maybe the new growth, maybe just the newest growth, maybe dried up a bit, but nothing like losing leaves or anything like that. It doesn't, it won't lose or yellow any of the older leaves. And this plant, if a part of it dries up or stops growing, it will by itself just push out a new vine from an auxiliary node. It is a very satisfying plant. Beautiful, easy, fun. A Hoya Carnosa Nova Ghost. So I got this maybe a week and a half ago from Jenna's Plants. And yes, I'm very excited. I've heard great things about this plant in terms of ease of care and how quickly it grows. So I'm looking forward to it doing those wonderful things for me in my care. I would love that. And yes, it's the Hoya, I believe it's a Carnosa Nova Ghost. And I first started rooting it. It was underwhelming because it took so long to root and wouldn't push out new growth until the roots were where they wanted to be. But once this plant gets established, it's just like hold my chlorophyll. It's just it just goes off and does its thing. It's such a great grower when it's established. I remember looking at people's videos of this plant and them talking about it like it's such a fast grower. And I was thinking to myself, this plant takes forever to grow. If you get a baby, if you get a cutting, especially unrooted, yes, it's a great grower once its conditions has been met. The leaves, they have predominantly minty leaves, and it's almost like a reverse variegation where the green is more of the variegation. And I repotted it recently. This is my DIY mix. I love it. I guess I almost forgot because it just happened yesterday. I went to a friend's house and she gave me, I believe these are donkey tail cuttings. So I still have not put them into water yet, or I still have not begun their propagation process yet because I just got these yesterday. And so I've always looked at these in the plant stores.
I just realized that I did not record anything for the Burro steel, and it's most likely because I totally forgot about it because I lost it not too long after. I find succulents can be quite difficult to propagate, and that's what happened.
Are you ready for the last plant? This one, I'm kind of glad it's the last plant because this one breaks my heart just a little bit. On. The plant that I'm referring to is the Hoya Coroacea. I have no idea. So that's this one. It's this plant. I don't usually go for soft leaf Hoyas, but there's something about this one that's quite unique. I just like, I'm into anything minty and splashy. And this plant is the Hoya Coroacea Silver. And you already know, if you watched any of my most recent videos, you already know what I'm about to say. I will show you pictures of what this plant looks like along the way. Stunning, until I made the grave error of putting it in my DIY mix that was contaminated. I lost a lot of that plant. But this is sort of like a little bit of a cheat. It's like a little bit of a cheat. So let me show you what's left of the original plant. So this is what's left of the original plant. These two leaves you see here, plus the leaf at the base. So 1, 2, 3. That's what's left of the original plant that you saw in that video. It broke my heart when I lost so much of that plant. I hollered up my friend Jenna. She was so kind to give me this one to sort of help restart my plant. But I love this plant. And so this is what it looks like now, right? So recently I put them both together, and now it looks a lot better than it did before. I honestly thought that I would completely lose the entire plant. I'm in shock that I was able to recover this plant from one leaf. It's lovely, a very thirsty Hoya. So self-watering pot in a very chunky mix will go a long way for you. Thank you so much for watching today's video. I appreciate you being here. If you're still here, if you support this channel, thank you so much. I appreciate it. See you next time. Thanks again for watching. If you liked this video, here are some videos I think you might enjoy. A big thank you to our Patreon members, especially our tiered members. There's Rachel and Carla in the Diamond Falls tier, Patricia in the Piton tier, and Delaney in the Pigeon Island tier.